Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today I can do an update, or actually a prequel or backstory to the very popular story I did yesterday titled, She Thought an Open Relationship Was a Sure Thing Until Learning Her Boyfriend's Dad Coached Him Old School. And guys, this backstory is all about the father in that video I did yesterday. And if you recall, that's about the father telling the story about how his son recently dumped his girlfriend because she brought up the idea of an open relationship. And his dad is military, old school wisdom, and handled it like a boss. The son handled it like a boss, and now the dad is sharing his story. And it's definitely a good one here, because I know a lot of you guys really enjoyed that story. We're giving a high five to the dad in the comment section. And you're going to see in his backstory here, just like his son, he had a gal that pulled some bullshit, and he learned through life experience the hard way with her, which helped him gain this life wisdom, as well as a male mentor to help him out when he was young too. So it's interesting how this all works, which is why I always say all young men need that masculine presence in their life to really guide them in ways that they can't get other places because they're not. A lot of young guys use television and movies, if you want to admit it, to guide them, if you will, and it doesn't work out that well. The old school, old masculine presence is definitely what is really lacking nowadays, and young boys need it. And you'll see in this story, it's definitely a good one. Now, as you can see, it's a little longer than usual, so I'm going to get right into it now. It says, Hi SSM. I'm closer to retirement, and my grind is almost over. My kids are all almost out of the house on their path to their own future away from home. 4 kids total, 3 boys and 1 daughter, ranging from 22 years old to nearly 18. And yes, I'm happily married to a great woman who is happy to our exit from the workforce. Yeah, this guy, 4 kids, happily married, and I think that's awesome. And again, it's an old school traditional relationship. I can attest to much of your commentary on the videos and have even used some of the videos for my sons, like yesterday. He wrote me this, I think, about the exact same day as he sent me the other story. My middle boy introduced me to your videos and has said that sometimes your advice is verbatim to mine. Dating now is very different to how I dated, and technology has done us no favors. It also doesn't help that there are too many entitled and spoiled people in the wild who demand respect and value beyond what they contribute. All of my kids have been heartbroken, and even my daughter has discovered the Chads and Tyrones. And I hope she's learned. And now that she's experienced reality, the bad boys, she understands what qualities they have, why she's attracted to them, and recognize where she's going wrong with those types, etc., etc. It's like we kind of all have to, when you're a little kid, your parents tell you, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the burner. And of course, as a kid, you have to do it anyway, and you burn your finger, then you learn, Sometimes you have to learn that way. But hopefully I do what I do so guys don't have to learn the hard way. Like I've told my kids, bad judgment gives you experience, and experience gives you wisdom. There you go. In relationships, the bad judgment is the red flags we missed. Wisdom is how well you stand back up in the aftermath. In particular, a particular fall I had is the best story I have shared with my kids through instinct or anger. I did a lot of right things. I also did a lot of wrong things, but that post-mortem wasn't clear until much later. I've always been active and athletic. After high school, I joined the military because I did not have a path, and there I could be paid and find a path beyond my parents' roof. I served from the late 80s to the early 90s and did very good financially, knowledge and skills. I was deployed and did experience loss. I did party like a young soldier, but avoided expensive cars and stripper wives. I had a side hustle drawing pictures and designed tattoos, which led to looking into art as a career path. He says, yeah, a combat vet with PTSD going to a liberal school is a fantastic idea. Highly recommended. As you can tell, he's being sarcastic here. Well, I think anybody with a shred of common sense going to a liberal school nowadays is a nightmare from hell. And 3, 2, 1. And here come the comments, guys, freaking out because I'm making a joke about politics and liberals. Relax, guys. I know you're eager to yell at me. I'm making a joke. We can all joke around here. I paid my way with savings and some loans, but also took full advantage of the GI Bill, scholarships, and grants. It wasn't cheap, but I had a budget and a plan. Also, still a young man, and any young soldier will swoon thinking of college girls even then, I had some fun with the art school girls, but more fun with girls from the other universities. The city had lots of colleges and universities in and around. Part of my therapy for PTSD sent me to volunteer services. My therapist had discovered a strong core of selfless services within me. The best place was the neonatal ICU. There, my volunteer service was letting a tiny sick child in an incubator hold onto my pinky through a gloved hand so the neonatal nurses could do their job and the baby would have comfort of human touch. Those ward nurses are absolutely ferocious in protecting their charges and can slice you with language better than a drill instructor. I bet they could. Through school, VA, and hospital, I got a routine and life picked up pace. I had some new friends, and Friday and Saturdays were college party nights. I dated a few girls and soon found myself in an exclusive relationship with a girl I met at one of those parties. She was in medical school. Really, for a doctor to become a nurse. I'm assuming a doctor if it was medical school. By coincidence, she also interned at the hospital that I volunteered at. We never moved in together, but we shared apartment keys after a year together, and we both stopped going to the wild parties unless it was small gatherings with friends. I should have noticed that most of her friends were more concerned about brands and fads. She hardly ever talked about or visited with family, whereas we often went to visit and play with my family. She did enjoy those visits, but her conversations with my family about hers were more on exotic places that they went to and things they had than family adventures and misadventures. So, you're going to see in a moment that her family is wealthy. And his family is, I think, is middle class. You know, they're comfortable, but certainly not rich. So these two are different worlds here. I am a large, fit dude, and even then, being from a reservation, I do prefer being active outdoors than cooped up in the city. Brittany, not her name, but that should paint a picture in your head, was somewhat wealthy, and so were her friends. Their parties were wine and fashion shows and showing off things and stuff. My parties with my friends were beer and barbecue and movie quotes. Well, I will take your parties any day of the freaking week. And by the way, guys, in the other video, he called his son's girlfriend Brittany, I believe. Or Brittany or Brooke. Something with a B. But regardless, that's his name that he's given gals that are, well, assholes. She enjoyed going to restaurants and events, which I had to save for, while I liked doing stuff like picnics at the beach or park, and camping. We made it work though, and I even had fun with her friends. I still had a few fond memories of those 3+ years. Midterms are always a chore. She had exams and papers with memorization, and I had multiple sketchbooks and big drawings and paintings to turn in. Being military and through some courses in Georgia, I'm capable of staying up a week and powering through coffee and hate. Brittany had her schoolmates and group study. I'd blast music and draw and paint while she would do study marathons with her friends. Yeah, I could do that too, man, in college. And I would often gather the materials for a report I had to write, paper, or study, and I would just crank it out right before the midterms or finals, and I could just get in that zone, and there you go. I have always had a habit of doing things at the last minute, but then I can pull it through at the last second, and that really has helped me in life. As an adult, I've learned now to, get things done ahead of time, but I was young. This was the only time we would ever be apart was midterms and finals. We would call on occasion, but usually reunite on Saturday morning afterwards. It was a cold December day, and I was hungry, so I made it cornbread and chili and thought I would surprise her for lunch on a Wednesday afternoon and maybe enjoy a good hump day. Her apartment was quiet, and I didn't hear anything. Maybe she was at school or the library. I set the hot chili and cornbread on her table and figured to wait until she got back home. I heard a mixtape I made her being played in her room. Maybe she was napping. Nope. Brittany had some GQ railing her from behind. I burst in and to destroy him and her, but something just snapped icy cold inside. I spent a few minutes gathering a few things that I had left over there and only stopped to place my key on her apartment on the floor by her bedroom door. Now, years later, the only regret I have is I never got to eat the chili and cornbread and left the cookware there. Yeah, only a guy would reminisce about the leftover food he didn't get to eat. So there you go, guys. He's with her for 3 years. He does a nice thing for her, and there she is getting plowed by some GQ guy, because this guy here obviously not a GQ guy. There you go. I don't think there's any guy watching this that hasn't been cheated on or something like that. That really opens your eyes to reality, and you get the point. He goes on, he says, this is the 90s, little internet, answering machines, and caller ID is available, and you know all the phone numbers you need to use. Email is only barely a thing. I spent well into a new year listening to her beating and crying at my door and calling my apartment and leaving messages, saying it was an accident and it's not what it seems. Translation, I fell on his D. It doesn't mean anything. Translation, I was bored. It's not you, it was me. Well, that one was true. There was more, and I just ended up unplugging my answering machine, went home to cut down the messages. See, this is decades ago, and it's the same thing. It's not you, it's me, or it's a big mistake, or I can explain, or the same stories from the Hobag Handbook that's been around since the beginning of time. At school, I had friends who would warn me when she was around so I could vanish. The neonatal nurses wouldn't let her or the world premier neurosurgeons near these babies if they were not on the approved list. My ex, even as a trainee doctor, couldn't get past them, especially when I let them know what she did. No cell phones yet, so I ghosted her before it was a thing. I did not write her letters and never read any of the ones that she sent. She eventually slid my key under the door as my deadbolt kept her out. So she is persistent. You know, you walked in and are getting plowed from behind by that GQ douchebag, and she thinks she's going to get you back, but obviously her perception at the time was wrong, thinking that you would just forgive her. She could cry and beg enough, and that's that. Nope. Sorry that happened to you, but it's these experiences that really teach us valuable life lessons. So far, all goodish, but I was very mad. Surface of sun ticked off. I did good things like read, work, and maintain all my responsibilities, but if I drank a lot. I pursued fights. You know, places in town and people where you can find trouble if you want to. Stupid things done, and lots could have gone wrong. I'd cross the street to avoid her through all of this. I almost ran into her at a crosswalk by the universities, and when our eyes met, I just sucked my teeth, grimaced, and did an about face. I had a huge portfolio with artwork and a jumbled tackle box filled with art supplies. A hand gripped my shoulder hard and spun me back around. I thought she was just desperate to talk. Nope, GQ was there. So you're avoiding her, and you've done a good job of this. You see her, you turn around, and someone has their hand on your shoulder turning you around. And it's that dude that was plowing your girl. He actually has the balls to put his hands on you. A big, giant military guy. Oh, this is going to go well. He was half a head shorter than me, and his ego wouldn't fit in the car his parents got him. He was saying something, but I spun around again and kept moving away. Again, GQ laid his hands on me, a big combat veteran, a bruiser who had spent days looking for trouble and avoiding Brittany. I hit him once in the throat and continued walking away with Brittany screaming and GQ coughing. That preppy asshole got exactly what he deserved. I wish I could have seen that. I wanted to pour my rage into more strikes, but went on to school. Very good. You whacked him in the throat. If you then start pummeling him, which nobody would blame you, yeah, you probably would not be writing this story today, as you'd still be in Sing Sing or San Quentin or wherever the hell they send people for life to. The police show up later to ask questions, as GQ had witnesses and was filing charges. Of course, this princess guy was filing charges. Can't fight his own fights. Thankfully, I was honest and compliant, and one of the cops was an Army Ranger. He was a big help, and in the conversation outside the school, it was observed that the intersection had early CCTV camera. My statement matched the video footage, and GQ's statement did not. So this dude was lying about what happened. But they got video footage of him harassing you, and you then defending yourself. Also, GQ's witnesses were not even seen on the camera footage, even in the aftermath. It was recommended I get a restraining order for GQ and stay away from the bars. My new Army veteran friend recommended I find a new volunteer service away from the hospital and stop looking for fights downtown. Yeah, that was a good idea to take his advice. I ended up boxing with him on weekends, which led to new friends and barbecues far from my ex, and my new volunteer gig was carpentry and art at a theater. The theater paid art students with meals. I decided to hit the dating pool with a vengeance and was in the mindset to be the chatter Tyrone type. I stowed a lot of rage for GQ and Britney. The production was a nutcracker, and there was a lot of dancers that seemed to fit the bill for my new adventures. Two things kept me from that path. My new police friend, and I just don't really have that desire for conquest of a lot of one-night stands. Instead, I found a lot of nice and not-so-nice gals, and instead of wild dates, it was restaurants and get-togethers with the dancers and the friends. It's pretty cool that whole situation went down. You became friends with a cop that showed up at the scene and helped you out. And obviously, he was an Army Ranger. You know, you guys had something you can bond over, and became a good buddy of yours. And this guy's, as I said, gentlemen, we all need a male mentor. This guy was his mentor, as you're going to see. This was fun, as it was a nice ease into things and fixed a lot of my anger. It was a year out from that bad day, and I had just came back from my downward spiral. After action reports are a common learning tool from my time in the military, and one weekend fishing with my cop buddy helped me see a lot of red flags I had missed. Brittany was full of red flags. Lots of male friends with her girlfriends, and most were not boyfriends, they were just friends. I only ever met her family on a few occasions, and the conversations were more about their status, their stuff, and things, just things. Her dad was just a corporate suit, and all I can remember is he identified as a vice president of something. Well, they're all a vice president of something. There was no warmth or depth to the family, with her siblings and parents just a shallow veneer. That's been my observation with a lot of wealthy families I've known over the years. They generally are as cold as fucking ice. 1997, I went down to New Orleans for the quick intermission. I got to tell a story to make a point. 1997, I went down to a wedding in New Orleans. I had a couple of friends that were getting married. They were older than me, from New Orleans. The guy's family was from old school money, whatever you want to go, old country, old school, whatever, old something, old money, Louisiana money. And his family, they were ice fucking cold. And the girl's family, they were definitely the opposite. They were poor. And the kindest, warmest people I ever met. They loved meeting me, a guy from the north, and were welcoming and wanted to know everything about me, blah, blah, blah. His family wanted nothing to do with me. Until his family found out that my dad was a doctor. And all of a sudden, the ice chips broke, and they were welcoming me in because, my dad was a doctor, blah, blah, blah. But even then, still, that whole family, cold as ice. It's amazing. Now, sure, not every family with money is like that, but not surprised here. Anyway, back to the story. Said here, Brittany's mother mainly giggled and spoke in platitudes and never seemed really there in the moment, but somewhere else. Probably because her mother was a drunk, which is a stereotype about the mothers in these wealthy families. Plastic was the best way I could describe them. If Brittany had item that was broken or out of style, it was trash and forgotten. Her apartment was cluttered and trashed. She was always losing small items in the debris. Mine was a small apartment with art and tool clutter, but everything in a place and a purpose, and I could never allow dishes to gather in the sink or clothing to lay all over the floor. During those 3+ years with Brittany, I still have many adventures and misadventures with my family, including some epic ones that we still laugh about. When my family found out I was going off the rails, my cousins and siblings would drop by or call and curb some of my worst behavior. Well, that's great you had a loving family on your side. I would take that any day over a fucking wealthy family. My sister would visit often for the weekend and met all my new friends, including my cop friend and the dancers. She became friends with a tiny petite dancer who was Thai Latino, and they became best friends. Often, Mary would arrive to my apartment before my sister would make it over on a Friday. Often, just the three of us would have adventures and go camping and fishing when we were not having barbecues with my cop friend. So, Mary is the new character in this story, and Mary is going to become, as you're going to see, a very important part of his life. Because of Brittany and the incident, I did an extra year of art school before graduating. The last year and a half were very good, and we did a lot of cheap, fun things. Sometimes it was a road trip home for my sister and I with Mary, and sometimes we would visit Mary's family. Mary's dad was a Marine Vietnam veteran and a Latino who's very family-oriented, and his country house was always filled with a lot of Mary's family for the weekend, barbecues, and holidays. Mary's mother is Thai and is very family-focused. She knows all the family addresses, phone numbers, and recipes. It was almost like being back at home with my family, including the micro-clusters of generational groups. So, this Mary chick, who's friends with your sister, her family is very family-oriented, obviously traditional, just like a family you grew up in. This is an ideal girlfriend for you because you're both from the same background, values, all that. Her dad gave me a stick for being in the Army and not a Marine, but really the only thing he disliked was my plans to be an artist, as that isn't a trade. He did enjoy my help in fixing his farm and home, as I have always been around carpentry and electricity, as my dad is a home builder and an electrician. It took me 2 years from the theater production of The Nutcracker to Sweet to realize that Mary and I have been dating. Even then, I was only a fall weekend picking apples and finishing up watching the sunset on the beach in the bed of the pickup truck with blankets and pillows that I realized it was just Mary and I without my sister. Well, you can see that a mile away. Mary and I dated properly for another 6 years, and we both tried hard work at our trained professions. 6 years. They took their time. They didn't rush to get married after a year or anything crazy like that. I worked at graphic companies and did all sorts of odd jobs just to pay the bills and grow savings, while Mary did her hair salons and factory work while trying to get elusive dancing jobs. In truth, we liked the country life, and arts belong in New York or Chicago, and we did not want to move away with hours from family. Well, smart move, because you certainly want to be anywhere near New York, living in New York City or Chicago today. My cop friend let me know that there was a job opening for the state police, and it seemed like a better thing than jobs I was doing. I became a trooper, and Mary supported that move. There you go, guys. The badass dad in the previous video, this guy here, who gave his son the old school wisdom in his military, is a cop. There you go. Mary eventually opened a dance studio and placed an art table in her office for me to use when I can. We never fight about money. We plan together, and we always make time for our family. We support each other's dreams, and we always do little things for the other. I spent a month drawing a portrait for us from our wedding in her dance studio for our 25th, and she never knew it is her favorite gift. Wow, you are quite the artist. We sleep together every night, and we can in bed, and always holding each other even if one is sick. She survived 3 combat deployments of the National Guard to active war zones, while I finished my 20 years for retirement benefits. She hated everyone and would let me know about it too. She always kept the faith in me and would grip me fiercely on each return. I could not go anywhere without her for a week until she was fully convinced that she wasn't dreaming. She worries when I'm out on police work too, but we have built a strong family on love and trust, and both our families are always there and familiar with military duties and fear for loved one's safety. Dude, you got yourself a loyal and loving wife. And, it took all that bullshit with your ex, Brittany, to help get you on that path towards her. So, it worked. And you learned a hell of a lot from that trollop that you can pass down to your sons. Dating and marriage is a grind like work. If you just show up, that is only 10%. I take the dogs and walk the property. Mary will seek me out and give me an ambush hug just to make sure I'm not focusing on friends no longer here. If I see Mary crying, she gets her tears kissed away, and since she dances and is tiny, she gets twirled till she giggles. If I'm tired, sore, sick, I will show up for Mary and family. You get what you put into that, and that includes communication. Mary hates coffee, but we talk at the table while I drink mine in the morning, and we talk about our day, hopes, fears, concerns at night when we're in each other's arms. Our kids have watched us their whole lives and how Mary and I treat each other and communicate, and they expect that in our relationships. Well, so you and your wife have an old school traditional marriage, and both of you came from families that sound same thing. And you're setting this example for your kids, and your kids that are young in today's fucked up world. And your oldest son with I believe you called her Brooke, that was her hoe bag name, Brooke. He got this close if you didn't have your wisdom on him to getting her trying that open relationship crap. Now, even though you and your wife set good examples and you obviously taught your sons a lot of things, still doesn't mean they can't start dating a gal nowadays and miss some red flags, and then next thing you know, the girl's bringing up open relationship. But good you set this example how a happy, loving married couple can be if your sons or daughter goes down that route one day. However, I hope both your sons and daughter understand that they take their time and get to know the person fully, etc., etc. And then I'm sure you'll pass this on to them. And if they don't want to get married, believe me, I wouldn't blame at all given today's world. Anyway, it says here, my youngest son is going to college now, and Brittany and her significant other's daughter is going to the same school. You're telling me all these years later, your ex Brittany from college, who you walked in on getting plowed from behind from GQ, she has a kid going to your kid's school and y'all ran into each other. Small freaking world. She looks very tired and faded in plastic. That's what happens. As the saying goes, men can age like Sean Connery and women age like Sean Connery. Her daughter is bubbly and spent her time at that event on her phone. Brittany tried to introduce me as a friend from college to her significant other. He did not seem interested at all. Mary was sweet and pleasant, and I think Brittany thought she was my daughter until Mary introduced my son. In other words, your wife looks darn good and youthful for her age, while your ex Brittany from college looks like, well, Sean Connery. Brittany brightened when Mary said our son was medically inclined. He is using the National Guard as a medic to pay for medical school to commission as an officer. My son did cringe when Brittany expressed hope that our kids would be friends. Not a chance in hell. Our son is one of your subscribers and is familiar with my story, so I doubt it will happen. Well, shout out to the son for sending you my channel. Mary was very adroit at the pleasantries that got our family extracted, and on our way home, I will never thank her for putting me on the path to marry. My wife definitely wanted an extra special massage for our nightly chat. He says, if you're going to be in a relationship, you need at minimum to share values, and Mary and I share strong values of family. Yes, I've been saying that for a long time. We always want the other around. We weathered 4 toddlers, and she did much of that while I was deployed. We share finances and know that what each of us have in our separate accounts. We don't hang out with the opposite sex unless it's a group and we are together except my deployments. There is no girls' nights or guy nights. See? His wife's not doing girls' nights, girls' weekends, girls' trips, that bullshit. Nope. You get married, that's your top priority, your family. The guys fish or shoot things at the country house, while the girls visit the house, but it's on the same property. Mary's dance studio is on our property and is also used for family gatherings. We share a life together that we built, and we support one another. Awesome. You deserve that. I'm really happy for you. I'm happy your kids grew up in a household like that. I hope your kids one day could have something like that as well, but given today's world, that can be very difficult. He said, could something happen? Maybe. Death and taxes are all you can be sure about. Mary feels I owe her for 4 years for military deployments, and she has informed me she intends to collect those missed moments every day when we retire. Our daughter will get my wife's business when we'll be done in the next few years, and off to further our adventures together. The main point is, if you're going to get into a long-term relationship, you can't stop your grind there any more than you do for work. If she shares your values, morals, and ideals, well, it is not that bad of a grind. Right. Unfortunately, trying to find somebody like that nowadays, good fucking luck. Secrets and lies are not good for a solid relationship. You have to do for you and your significant other. I still have my hobbies, and my wife has hers. That's good. You need to have your own thing and her as well. We know those hobbies, and that is often a good spot to remember holiday and birthday gifts. In the end, there isn't much out there that my wife fears and will keep me from returning to her, and I know she doesn't want to let me go when I get home. After the honeymoon phase, you have to grind to keep it, yet the work gets easier if you work together and share the same core. Well, that's the point. You have lots of guys nowadays that want to work on it and share the core, but given the attitude of the gals nowadays, it's like, it's unbelievable. And again, people wonder why so many guys are not just walking away from marriages, but also just not any relationships, but even hooking up, because they see the attitude is so widespread, the young girls nowadays. And it's not all, but it's a hell of a lot. And we know where it comes from. The FNS movement. Haven't talked about the bowel movement. That's what it really is in a long time. He says, we were together nearly a decade and didn't marry until we knew we did not want to share or lose each other. Hear that? I'll read that again. We were together nearly a decade and didn't marry until we knew that we did not want to share or lose each other. Nearly a decade before they got married. They really got to know each other. Our families were not surprised, but more about that time when it's the party. He says, keep grinding. I'll be fishing and watching sunsets with my wife. So there you go, guys. That is the end of his story. And I thought it'd be good to go over here pretty quickly after the one I did yesterday, because so many of you guys really admired that guy, and his story backs up why he's old school and all that, where he came from. And also, he, with his cop friend, got a mentor as well when he needed him. Came along just at the right time. All young guys need that male mentor, a masculine role model to help him, also help keep him out of shit. And also the fact that he had a gal that did him wrong, just like his son's girl did him wrong. And he dealt with it accordingly and all that, moved on and became all the wiser. So definitely a very entertaining story. I'm glad he sent that in. Really appreciate that, sir, and I appreciate you sending your story. And I do hope you send in an update about your son, because obviously he kicked that girlfriend to the curb, and she's throwing a hissy fit about the whole thing. We all want to hear an update where things go with that down the road. But anyway, guys, thought this would be a good one to go over. So give this guy a shout out. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below what you think about this. Again, give this guy a shout out. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.